Hello, my name's Dr. Shannon Spenceley, and for about 8 or 9 minutes I'd like to tell you about a study that I'm involved in, moral distress in the care of persons with dementia in residential care facilities. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the pilot of our Phase 2 survey. So I hope you will invest a bit of time and learn more about this important study because we really need to hear from you. I would like to acknowledge gratefully the generous support of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada that's funded my study. I also gratefully acknowledge the great leadership in Alberta Health Services South Zone Seniors Health. Here you'll see our research team. On the left is Dr. Olu Awasaga, our biostatistician. Next to him is Dr. Ikuda, a familiar face in southern Alberta. That's me in the middle, standing next to Mr. Colin Zieber, the Executive Director for Seniors Health in the South Zone, and my colleague Dr. Brad Hagan here at the University of Lethbridge. There's important people missing from this picture, including Dr. Barry Hall, our social work colleague from the University of Calgary, as well as the research assistants on the study, Janet Lappins and Erin Cardolis-Wilson. So what's the issue that we're examining in our study? Well, by way of background, we know from research done in Alberta that 58% of designated supportive living residents have a diagnosis of dementia. 71% of long-term care residents have a diagnosis of dementia. We know that these numbers are expected to grow. And we know, and you certainly know, that caring for people with dementia is complicated and complex. Processes of care do also have the potential to generate moral distress in caregivers. So you may be wondering, what's moral distress? Well, moral distress is that bad feeling that you get when you know in your heart what the right thing is to do, but for whatever reason, you are unable to do it. And that results in going home at the end of the day feeling pretty badly. For example, let's take one from a different setting than you're in. You're a nurse, imagine, in an intensive care unit, caring for a gentleman with terminal cancer. Let's say the family wants multiple interventions to continue. And you know that although the interventions may slightly lengthen the man's life, they are causing him great discomfort. He's going along with his family because he doesn't want to disappoint them. The physician's also going along with this and continues to order what you feel are futile and painful interventions. You go home at the end of the day feeling badly and quite powerless to change the situation. So why are we concerned then about that bad feeling that a nurse takes home when he or she feels powerless at the end of the day? Well, we're concerned because we need you. That feeling can lead to burnout and or leaving a place of work or leaving the profession. It can influence the quality of care that's provided to residents or to patients. It's associated with a number of physical and emotional problems for nurses, and it certainly affects staff recruitment and retention. And we know that long-term care and supportive living settings really are needing to implement strategies to hang on to our valuable staff. The current research on moral distress has focused mainly on hospital settings with acutely ill patients. Very little research has explored the unique kinds of ethical challenges that caregivers like you in residential care might experience when caring for persons with dementia. So some of the goals for my research are to explore the nature and extent of moral distress among nursing caregivers, to identify situations that lead to moral distress and factors that may lead to moral distress. We'd like to know more about how moral distress affects nursing caregivers and also what those same caregivers do to alleviate the feelings of moral distress that they have. Phase 1 of our study, which has been taking place over the past year, is now complete, and it consisted of interviews with RNs, LPNs, and healthcare aides who care for persons with dementia in supportive living and long-term care, and it also included RNs who do case management, we know, in the supportive living settings. We are now in Phase 2 of the study. In Phase 2, the data that we collected in Phase 1 has been analyzed and has served as the basis for developing a survey. Now, you may not have heard much about Phase 1, and that's because we can't release the findings from Phase 1 until we have completed Phase 2. Because you can imagine, if we released a lot of the findings that we learned about moral distress in residential care from Phase 1, we might actually influence our findings and influence the process for Phase 2. So, to avoid that, we are now commencing a pilot of our survey. And you are in a facility that happens to be a pilot facility. So we have taken surveys out to your facility, and we really would encourage you to seek those surveys out and to please complete one. If you're an RN, an LPN, or a healthcare aide, and you care for persons in your facility that have dementia, I would really encourage you to find a survey and complete it. Once this pilot phase is complete, we will be distributing the survey to an additional 450 nursing care staff, again, RNs, LPNs, and healthcare aides, both within residential care as well as in case manager positions in home care, in the South Zone to determine the incidence of moral distress in these settings in our zone. The official commencement of this project was in September 2012. As I already mentioned, in Phase 1, we interviewed 21 nursing staff in residential care and home care from across the zone. That phase is now complete, and we learned a great deal from the nurses that we were fortunate enough to interview. We used that information to develop a survey, and that survey is now in the pilot phase. And a pilot is simply where we take the survey out for a test run. We want to make sure it makes sense to people that are completing it, and we want to make sure that we're getting good data back before we go to a larger implementation of the survey. The target completion for this limited pilot is early January 2014. So as you can see, we don't have a lot of time. So I would really encourage you, if you are interested, to seek out the survey and complete it as soon as possible. Again, please consider filling one out. The surveys are at your site now, and you should look in the staff area. There'll likely be a bowl of candy not too far away from where the surveys are located. It should take you about 20 minutes to complete the survey, and we would encourage you to not do that on work time, but to take the survey with you. They are anonymous, and you are not to identify who you are on the survey. We would then encourage you to deposit the survey in the gray metal locked mailbox in the staff area. Research assistants will be by often to pick up surveys from the box and drop off more candy. If you would like more information about the study in a little greater detail, I invite you to visit our website at www.moraldistress.ca. We really believe this research is important, and we believe it will help managers and decision makers better understand moral distress, how it's impacting on people like you, how to best support you in providing care for persons with dementia, and I think it will help us identify possible solutions to reduce or address moral distress in the settings in which you work. I really hope you'll consider participation. If you have questions, I invite you to contact either Janet or Aaron, and their email addresses are right there for you, as is mine. My phone number is also provided for you, 403-329-2432. I thank you again so much for your time, and I hope you will consider filling out a survey. Thanks, and have a super day.